Hey everyone, thanks for checking out this video. Today I'll be showcasing a team that helped me re-hit Legend from the 2900 ELO range. Now, I'll talk briefly about the team. This team involves rather spicy pick in Mantine. Used to be very meta-relevant, with the wing attack nerf it kind of fell off, but it handles a couple very meta-relevant things very, very well. Annihilates, Mudslappers, Talonflames, Diggersby. Even with a slower pacing to Aerial Ace and I guess Water Pulse in this case, we still very comfortably handle those matchups. It's also very neutral into Azumarill, Shadow Drapion, and the like. It is weak against mainly the rollout users, as well as Morpeko, so to cover for those weaknesses, we got Shadow Marowak in the back, which is just a beast this season, as well as Guzzlord, another very underrated pick. You have teams actually triple weak into Guzzlord sometimes, like the Talonflame, Morpeko, and Superior line. So that about rounds out a brief explanation on the team. Now, as I dive into these battles, I might be stopping at certain points, and I'll also be taking notes on what went well and what didn't go well. So let's just dive right in and check out these battles. Let's dive into the first battle. Now, right away, we're going to lead our Mantine into the opposing Shadow Marowak. This is a great lead. Now, our opponent swaps out into Dewgong. Dewgong's a bit tricky. Our whole team is triple weak against Dewgong. So we're actually going to fire the Aerial Ace immediately, on 6, not on 7, because there's a one-turn switching from the opponent. They fire the Icy Wind right away, and we bring our Guzzlord. And we CMP to the second Icy Wind with our Brutal Swing. So we get this Brutal Swing off in a not debuff state. Fantastic. Dewgong doesn't hit super hard, we're going to tank this Icy Wind, and our opponent's going to bring in a Toxapex to farm us all the way down. My switch clock, I don't believe is up yet. It's not up, so we're going to let ourselves get farmed out, and we're immediately going to bring in our own Shadow Marowak. We do not wait the timer out at all, because we want to ensure as much time for our Marowak to be on this Toxapex so we can farm up as much energy as possible. If we're going to farm, we're going to farm. Our opponent recognizes this. They're going to switch into their own Shadow Marowak. So we're going to fire off both of our bow clubs. Hopefully strip shield, and this actually leaves our own Marowak very low, so it's not going to be able to reach another move. At this point, their Marowak has to take out this Mantine. We're going to call the bait, and we successfully call the Bone Club bait. And at this point, we're just going to shield the opponent's only win cost of full send. They do, we shield that correctly, and the game is over. So I'm going to pause right here really quickly. What went well there? Okay. I think the first thing that went well is handling that Dewgong. Right? So we handle that Dewgong by but tag teaming, right, between both the Mantine and the Guzzlord. So we handle that Dewgong well. Autocorrect. Dewgong via tag teaming. Right. I think the second thing that also went well in that game was not immediately switching in the Shadow Marowak. Right? We didn't wait our timer. We swapped in our Marowak right away, and this actually allowed us to get as much farm as possible on that Toxapex, which allowed us to strip a shield later on when they switched in their own Marowak. I think lastly, just calling that bait. Right. Recognizing that the opponent had to either send the Rock Slide right away or bait with the Bow Club. Right. And it really is a 50-50% chance, but we decided to call the bait, and it's always a good feeling when you call a bait well. And that sealed up the game. So that was the first game. Now let's dive right into the second game. Our second battle, Mantine into Clodsire. This is a fine lead depending on whether or not they have Stone Edge. So let's just wait and see if they have it. If they're on 7, it could be a Stone Edge. They're probably trying to at least fake the Stone Edge. Now they swap in their Mandibuzz. We're gonna answer that with our Guzzlord, which is a favorable matchup because they can only go for Aerial Aces. They honestly don't do that much damage. They might as well be resisted. We're going to fire off our Sludge Bomb here. Now I know they're 1 or 2 away, so I'm going to do 1. Yep, I know I can survive another Aerial Ace, so I have no shield. And I know they're very close to another, so I'm going to throw the Sludge Bomb. I could go for the Brutal Swing, but I do not want to risk them surviving on 1 HP and all that. So I'm going to throw the Sludge Bomb. And we actually are able to get to this departing Brutal Swing on the Clodsire. Now here I make a bit of an interesting play. I swap into a Mantine and fire off this Water Pulse that I have banked. It's a fine move, I guess. but didn't even KO the Clodsire. They get off a Sludge Bomb, and this actually sets up a very nice farm for their Feraligatr, because I'm switch locked because I brought in that Mantine, right? But they're not. So they actually almost got like 6 Shadow Claws worth of energy. Thankfully, I was able to strip a shield from that matchup. And because I have such a huge energy lead, I had to make a catch. So I was able to catch that Hydro Cannon onto the Guzzlord. And now it's a very straightforward path to victory with our Shadow Marowak just basically mud slapping down the rest of this team. So enjoy the footage as we slap down the rest of their team, and I want to briefly talk about that pivot I made, because I don't exactly agree in retrospect with how I played that game. Pause here for a second. Now looking back, I don't exactly agree with that hard pivot that much. Right? Our Guzzlord was on 1 HP. Giving that Clodsire an extra poison isn't going to flip that matchup against my Mantine, right? We had a Water Pulse banked. Instead, what I should have done is bring in my Shadow Marowak, which has a really hard check and really good fast move pressure against the Clodsire, and align my Mantine against the very likely water type in the back, right? You see Clodsire, there's almost always a water and ice resist in the back. Feraligatr, Azu, but more commonly Dewgong as well, right? So I think that read would have made this game a lot easier, right? Because I had to pull off an insane catch there, which I don't pull that off every day of the week, right? So I'd say what went wrong is that hard pivot. I don't like it. It actually misaligned our Pokemon, right? And put ourselves in a very tough situation, right? So if we're never in a situation where we have 2 good answers to that Pokemon, it's important to do a team read and see what might be in the back, and then make a decision from there. Great. Now, carrying on. Now we're into the last battle of this set. I was only able to get 3 battles from this first set. We lead off with Dunsparce, which is pretty terrible. We're going to safe swap into our Guzzlord and immediately get met with Wigglytuff. That's about as bad as a game can get. And also, Guzzlord's safe switch is honestly pretty crazy, given that Wiggly does exist. We're going to go throw in good timing, get this Aerial Ace off. They actually shield, which is interesting. Right? And then here we're going to go for just a slightly harder hitting Water Pulse. And here I immediately swap into my Marowak. And the reason I do that is because I know I'm going to get debuffed one way or another. So I'd rather save the Marowak, the low health Mantine in the back in case I could clear it, but it didn't make a difference. We lost that game, and then we got hard checked, and as RPS City, not much that we could have done there. Alright, now, what went wrong? Nothing really went well. Nothing really went wrong either. I played to the best of my ability, but we just got RPS'd all the way through. And it happens. You gotta be able to take these losses gracefully, keep a clear head, and move on to the next game. So that wraps up the first set. Now, on to this second set here. Mantine against Toxapex, which is a very neutral lead. Now at this point, they farmed to do the Sludge Wave. I could shield, but Mantine's bulky. I don't want to shield a move from Toxapex either, so I just let it go. They actually bait with a Brine, which puts me in a very good position. Now, I hard pivot into my Guzzlord. The reasoning is, first of all, it's the soft answer. Second of all, I don't expect there to be a fairy in the back given a Toxapex lead. They end up bringing what is that Pokemon? A Gastrodon. So again, very neutral. We're just going to fire off these brutal swings, chip this thing down, right? And what this actually does is it sets up an incredibly nice farm for my Mantine. I throw after 1, and yep, I hit an excellent, just because I don't want them to get like too much bodies in them chips. Right? So I just fire off this, and I actually immediately pivot into my Shadow Marowak. Right? The reason I do that is because our switch timers are desynced. So I was able to get 3 Mud Slaps worth of damage on that Toxapex. The answer with Galarian Corsola, they're up a shield. This is already not a good matchup for Marowak, so it's made even worse by the fact that we're down a shield. We can farm, because of that 3 Mud Slap head start, we're able to get to the back-to-back Bone Clubs, CMP on the second Bone Club, and this should hopefully force a shield. Great. If we're out of shields and our Marowak is going to go down, so my Nightshade connects, we go down, and at this point, they hard swap their Toxapex back in, trying to force energy, right? And know they cannot be anywhere near a Sludge, so I farm up to almost an Aerial Ace and a Water Pulse. The Aerial Ace picks up the Toxapex, and the Water Pulse picks up the KO. So, pausing briefly here. What went right? What went wrong? I think the main takeaway I have in this game is that we understood that we misaligned the switch timers. Because when you misalign the switch timers, after the opponent counter swaps and you bring in your first Pokemon and you farm them all the way down, you can actually hard pivot into your third Pokemon, and their lead Pokemon is still going to be stuck in that bad matchup. So you can actually get some really valuable energy and chip damage that way. So what went well there? I think throwing that aerial ace on the Mantine really didn't allow for any extra time to be burned. So hard swapping and misaligned switch timers, right? And that's a key takeaway there. And I really think that helped us, first of all, get both shields off the opponent, and also recognizing the fact that the top specs just couldn't have a sludge wave, so we could comfortably farm up to a lot of energy. I think that was another part that helped us win this game. Watch 2 more games here. Got Mantine into Pidgeot. Now this Pidgeot's running Gust, so they're dealing a lot of heavy neutral damage. I'm going to actually throw this aerial ace, and our opponent should know this is not an Ice Beam, so they actually let this go, which is completely fine. And here I have to call whether it's going to be a Brave Bird or there's going to be a Feather Dance. I'm okay with either. They're going to go for the aerial ace, so I'm going to go ahead and do 1 and the aerial ace as well. They shield. I'm not going to let them farm me down, so I hard pivot into my Guzzlord. Here I shield, afraid of the Brave Bird, and they Feather Dance bait me. Not even a bait, they just debuff me, and that's very, very cruel, because now this matchup is absolutely miserable. It was already slightly favoring the Diggersby to begin with. Now we're just tickling the Diggersby with our Brutal Swings. So we're just going to fire this off, and the goal here is really try to burn the switch clock. So we burn it, we swap into our Mantine, and that didn't really help out anything. And that was genuinely a very bad play on my part. The idea was to just reset a debuff, but I could have tried to catch a move with that. I could have tried to pivot into my Shadow Marowak instead. Instead, I just threw away my Mantine, gave them 5 extra quick attacks. So we'll reflect on that in just a second. Here they have Ferrothorn. And we're going to chip with the Bow Club right away. They know shield. And here it's tricky because they need 2 Power Whips to KO. They already have a couple bullets to head start. So we're just going to go ahead and fire off these Brutal Swings. Second one does draw the shield. Now the question is, are they doubled up? And the answer is yes. Right, the first Power Whip comes through. I know they have a second one back. That game was over. Now, we end with a 4-1 set there. How could we have better played that last game? Okay. The last game, I threw out my Mantine, gave him 5 free quick attacks with no real purpose. Right? My intent was to reset that debuff on my Guzzlord, but I could have used my Mantine as a catch. I could have at least attempted a catch. I didn't even attempt it. I just threw it out there in hopes that our opponent would try to panic and throw a move. But our opponent was smart. They knew that our Mantine was energy dry, and so that was a big no-no. And that ended up bringing our Marowak too low. Drew a shield, and the Ferrothorn just swept it back. So. So I was going to say, swapping out to clear debuff, conceding a full farm down. That was why we lost that game. Now, so that was a 4-1 set. Onto our last set, and this is the set that took us to Legend. Here we got Mantine against Azumarill. Very, very neutrally, very, very boring matchup. This used to happen way more last season. Was it last season? Whenever it was before the Wing Attack nerf. So we're just going to play this out slowly. Just chip away at this Azumarill, throwing Wing Attacks on good timing. Right, 1, 4, and 7. Right? As Jamie Finn loves to say, throw on good timing. And the idea is that we're going to soft lose this one. We're going to do 1 and throw the aerial ace. They're going to outpace the next move, which is completely fine. They actually shield that aerial ace, which is a little surprising. We're going to farm to 7, throw the next aerial ace, and it's going to be a very tough level down, so I expect a move to be thrown at some point. There it is. There is the Ice Beam from the Azumarill. And this actually gives a very, very, very nice farm down for our Guzzlord to do a double resisted Dragon Tail down. We're going to shield a move regardless, that's completely fine, but the hope is that this energy will go everywhere. They don't want to concede that farm down, So they hard swap into their own Guzzlord. Now this is one of those very rare instances I wish I had Dragon Claw. I did, such Sludge Bomb, and now we're going to pivot into our Marowak so we don't, take too much Dragon Tail damage. The Azu is within a single Mud Slap range, so that would essentially be used as a catch. Now here they're bringing in Talonflame. I'm not baiting, I'm full setting the raw side. They get one-shotted, and this game is over. Now, what went right, what went wrong? I think, first of all, interesting choice on our opponent's part to shield Air Ace, and once again, that should suggest that there's something weak in the back, which there was. Now, I think the Dragon Tail down was a very good move, right? Instead of doing a Mud Slap down, we did a double resist Dragon Tail down. Right? So knowing that the double Dragon Tail down was good, right? I think that actually gave a lot of energy that, even though I didn't actually use any of it, I think would have been helpful to deal with whatever's in the back, right? And usually there's like a Drapion on the back, and there might be like a Driftblim or Corsola on the back, like you never know. And I think not baiting the Talonflame was a huge win, right? Now, people might be tempted to bait that Talonflame because a raw side is very threatening, your opponent has a single shield left, but given that we have about like 4 to 5 Mud Slaps worth of energy, whether or not they actually pace the fly earlier, right? Baiting is never, in this case, not good for you, because let's say your opponent calls that bait. You waste 4 Mud Slaps worth of energy, they're going to outpace the fly, and you would have done no damage, and you lose a shield in the process. Right? Conversely, if you don't bait, they either give up that final shield, which frees up your Guzzlord to take care of it in the back, or they get one shot. Right? So our opponent knows that their win condition at this point is to call a bait. So understanding that the opponent's win condition is to call a bait informs me as the player to just full send the rock slide, right? Because that is the optimal play. So not baiting the Talonflame was what went well there. On to the next. Wonderfully, Mantine Chestnut. Very spicy. Also, I'm a big fan of Chestnut. They safe swap into the Shadow Drapion, and we answer with our Guzzlord. This is a very, very good matchup. We resist everything with the exception of the Poison Stings. Here I always fire a Brutal Swing because it doesn't KO, but it makes the matchup more comfortable because otherwise we would have to give up a shield. So they bring in a Talonflame, aiming to get like a nice farm down. We're going to throw 1 and the Brutal Swing. Now at this point, I'm bringing in my Marowak. Why? It's because I know it's useless, right? It gets completely walled by the Chestnut. It doesn't do well against the Talonflame. So what I do here is I immediately get to a Bone Club and I just throw it. I don't try to build to the Rock Slide. And the reason is because I know that at this point, the only value I can get out of Marowak is chip damage. And so I immediately just throw the Bone Club. Now you'll also notice that I don't actually shield the second fly. And the reason is in the very rare instance that this Chestnut is running Thunder Punch, right? Because if I shield that, they could potentially outpace me to a Thunder Punch, and that game would have been over. Pausing here really quickly. What went well, what didn't go well? I think understanding that Marowak was useless, and just sending it out there to get chip damage on their Talonflame was the correct move. I would have done, if I had to play that battle 10 times, I would have done that every single time, right? We don't want to bring in our Mantine because against the Chestnut on the back, we have that information. Our Marowak is dead weight, right? So sending out, I'm just going to make a note here. Knowing when a Pokemon is not useful is very important information. Usually you'll know that when your opponent reveals their entire line. So knowing when a Pokemon is not useful, setting out, get some chip damage, was really what helped me take this game there. Next game. Mantine into Dragonite. This is a I would say it's a neutral lead because their Dragon Claws do a lot of damage. Our Aerial Ace probably doesn't KO. We farm up to a potential Ice Beam, and we're going to throw the Aerial Ace. Dragonites will shield, they love to shield. And at this point, I bring in my Guzzlord to attempt a kind of Dragon Tail snipe down, which is like a fast farm down where they can't really react in time. They bring in the digger speed. So not a lot of respect for our ice types out here. But I don't have a Dugong on my team. I'm guessing the last Pokemon's going to be a Dugong answer. But they get, they throw a Scorching Sands, basically take us out. We're going to be able to get off our second Brutal Swing, put them into the low yellow health. At this point, we don't concede a farm down either. We immediately swap into our Shadow Marowak, and they bring in a Feraligatr. Now, given that they hard pivoted into a Feraligatr, they can't swap out. So at this point, I know that we can outpace 2 Bone Clubs before they can get their 2 Hydro Cannons. Now, I did not throw one in the move because that is, I didn't want to risk Feraligatr getting to another Hydro Cannon, which would have been disastrous. Here, we barely make it to the Bone Club on the Fire Punch CMP tie, and that was actually an extremely close game, right? Because had I not reached that Bone Club, they would have been able to get a Fire Punch down, and their 2-turn move would KO my Guzzlord before the Dragon Tail can register. What went right? What went wrong? I think not conceding the farm down at any point was a good move. And I think the hard pivoting again into the Marowak, not letting the Diggersby get any more farm, was also the correct move. Now, I think the mistake here, though, is not doing in the Feraligatr matchup against my Marowak. After throwing the first Bone Club, I could have done one more in the move. I did not do that. I threw right away on bad timing. And that Bone Club didn't even KO. I needed an extra Mudslap to KO afterwards. I could have taken one less Shadow Claw's worth of damage. And you saw how close that Marowak was getting KO'd at the very end by that Diggersby farm down. Had I thrown good timing, that matchup would have been a lot comfortable. So it all comes down to these little decisions that you make. So I would say what went wrong? Not counting Gator Energy, which caused me to take extra Shadow Claw. Thankfully, we were able to win that game, but you're not going to be as lucky as every time. So I think it's important to recognize that I just wasn't counting, right? And that's something that I should improve on. All right, we're nearing the end of our battles. We pick up a great lead again, Mantine into Shadow Marowak. Our opponent's likely going to stay in here. So if they're staying in here, I know that they're weak in the back. So this is why I actually shoot it, and they full send the Rock Slide, which is great. Now, I throw the Arrow Ace immediately because I know they're going to reach an Icy Wind, and I want to preserve that Water Pulse because for that Marowak in the back. So I actually know they only farm to the Swift, so I'm actually going to go farm to the double and throw back-to-back bones. I throw just a Bone Club here. If they want a shield, oh, that actually went through. Okay, I wasn't expecting the shield. That's why I let myself get farmed down to like very low health, and then through the Bone Club. But I was not expecting them to shield that, and now we see why, because they have a godforsaken Bastiodon in the back. And at this point, the game is over because I needed that Marowak, but our Guzzlord really had nowhere to go in that whole game, right? It would have done nothing to resist. It would have been resisted by Bastiodon, and it would have been just deleted by the Wiggly Tuff. So you could argue that I should have kind of stayed in with my Mantine through the Water Pulse, take out the Wigglytuff, and oh, there's Legends out right there. So I think what went wrong there is I did not make the correct team read, right? I brought in my Marowak against their Wigglytuff, right? But I just, for some reason, did not expect the triple, Toxic Fast Move team. Because what I should have done there is stayed in with my Mantine, double Ace, or even Ace in the Water Pulse, the Wigglytuff, win that matchup, get my Guzzlord on the Marowak and the Marowak on the Bastiodon. But the lesson here is that you can't read teams perfectly every single time. And so I look at this loss as one where it's I could have made a better team read, but at the end, I'm not going to be too hard on myself because that's not a game that I think I was supposed to win. our guzzler in the back had nowhere to go, and sometimes you gotta be graceful with these losses. So with that, that actually wraps up our Fort 1 set. And you're gonna see this animation of Cash and Pancham, and here we are able to re-hit Legend. So that is it for this video. Thanks so much. It's a bit longer because I'm stopping to take notes and whatnot. I hope this is helpful. I apologize if it's a little long, but I appreciate if you stuck around to the very end. I have another video lined up where I will be showcasing some leaderboard ELO Oranguru battles, excuse me. So hopefully put that out sometime next week as the new season begins. And yeah, thanks so much, and see you next time.